Hey, what's up? Welcome to the Sermon Illustrator tutorial to show you what it can do. So I'm going to start off pretending I am doing a sermon series on prayer. So I need illustrations on prayer. And it's going to ask, it's going to give you like 17 kinds of illustrations. And so it gives you historical stories, gives you examples from science. It gives you studies from social sciences or psychology. It's going to give you examples from art or music, stories from literature or movies. In this case, it's A Wonderful Life and Frodo in The Lord of the Rings. And then metaphors on this topic, poetry or quotes, first century Roman or Greek culture. Obviously, it will sometimes give the opposite, like a negative illustration. So Romans prayed to gods out of fear, and Christians pray to a loving Father. So public versus private prayer, the Pharisees and all of that. And then Christian culture in the first century, biblical parallels. This is cool because sometimes it'll think of a story or an illustration I haven't thought of yet from the scripture that I could use to illustrate the point that I'm making. And then current events, fables, parables, folklore, or mythology, interesting practices from cultures around the world, tidbits from U.S. history. So Abraham Lincoln's prayers and the Apollo 13 mission, and then sports stories. So interesting thing there. So little known or forgotten but inspiring characters. These two are David Brainerd and Susanna Wesley. Strange or compelling court cases, prayer in schools, and then legislative prayer. Interesting. Now, once you do this, it asks, would you like any more detail on any of these, or would you like me to create visuals or anything like that? And so what I'll say is, yes, give me more details on, let's say, Susanna Wesley. Let's say I'm going to talk about mothers, doing kind of a thing about moms and how moms can have a prayer life or something like that. So he tells the story a little bit of this right here. It says, here's her prayer closet, an apron over her head. And she dedicated 1 hour a day to pray for her children. And her influence led her sons, John and Charles Wesley, to become spiritual leaders. So then it says, would you like to do any of these things? You can create a PowerPoint or Keynote slide. You can write a narrative version you can paste into your sermon notes, or you can create a short social post to share with your congregation. So I'll say, let's do PowerPoint. All right, so it's going to take a moment and try to render that PowerPoint slide. Sometimes these are sketchy, like it's like all other AI images. Sometimes it's not usable. You can always just ask it to do another one if you don't like what you're seeing after that. So you can ask it to do a separate one, and that's fine. It can something that can totally be done. But sometimes, on the other hand, I can use I would say probably 75% of the time, I can use it right off the page and put it into my PowerPoint presentation. So sometimes it's a little slower, sometimes a little faster, but this is about typical, maybe a little longer than usual on creating this slide. So let's see what it does. Let's see what it comes up with here. All right, yeah, here's Susanna Wesley in era appropriate clothing. All right, and she's there with her kids. And then, would you also like to create a narrative version? Let's say yes, please. So if I say that, it'll give you a narrative version of this that you could literally paste directly in. In the early 1700s, a woman named Susanna Wesley lived in a small, crowded home in England, right? So you get 19 children, only 10 survived infancy. She was a woman of deep prayer. Whenever she needed time with the Lord, she would sit down in her chair and pull her apron over her head. And her children knew not to disturb her during that time. And kind of gives like the background of why it matters there. Okay, so that's cool. And then it says, would you like a social media post to share this story with your congregation? Yes, please. All right, so when it does that, it's going to create a social media post. All right, and you can do that to follow up the post. Yes, I would like a social media image to go with this post. So you can see what it says. Need time to pray, but life feels too busy. With 10 children running around our homes, this is what she did. And then you can use this image that it'll create to go ahead and post it along with that social. So you can either use this as a promo And you can actually ask it extra things. Can you do another post that's a promo designed to get people to want to come hear the rest of the story at church this Sunday? Okay, so I'm going to wait till it finishes designing that image, and then I'll ask it to do another post that's there we go. Okay, so let's do this. You do another post that's there we go. All right, what if the secret to a powerful prayer life wasn't silence, but strategy? Imagine a mother with 10 minutes, she threw her apron over her head. And here's the info. And so that way you can do it to get people to share that on your social. You can put it on your social media account, your personally or at your church. So that is how you use the Sermon Illustrator. You can actually go back and do more on any of these. So you can say, like, let's hear about the rescue of this tide.